Here is one more system of philosophy. If the reader is tempted to smile, I can assure him that I smile with him, and that my system, to which this volume is a critical introduction, differs wildly in spirit and pretensions from what usually goes by that name. In the first place, my system is not mine, nor new. I am merely attempting to express for the reader the principles to which he appeals when he smiles. There are convictions in the depths of his soul, beneath all his overt parrot beliefs, on which I would build our friendship. I have a great respect for orthodoxy, not for those orthodoxies which prevail in particular schools or nations, and which vary from age to age, but for a certain shrewd orthodoxy which the sentiment and practice of laymen maintain everywhere. I think that common sense, in a rough, dogged way, is technically sounder than the special schools of philosophy, each of which squints and overlooks half the facts and half the difficulties in its eagerness to find in some detail the key to the whole. I am animated by distrust of all high guesses, and by sympathy with the old prejudices and workaday opinions of mankind. They are ill expressed, but they are well grounded. What novelty my version of things may possess is meant simply to obviate occasions for sophistry by giving to everyday beliefs a more accurate and circumspect form. I do not pretend to place myself at the heart of the universe, nor at its origin, nor to draw its periphery. I would lay siege to the truth only as animal exploration and fancy may do so, first from one quarter and then from another, expecting the reality to be not simpler than my experience of it, but far more extensive and complex. I stand in philosophy exactly where I stand in daily life. I should not be honest otherwise. I accept the same miscellaneous witnesses, bow to the same obvious facts, make conjectures no less instinctively, and admit the same encircling ignorance. My system, accordingly, is no system of the universe. The realms of being of which I speak are not parts of a cosmos, nor one great cosmos together. They are only kinds or categories of things which I find conspicuously different and worth distinguishing, at least in my own thoughts. I don't know how many things in the universe at large may fall under each of these classes, nor what other realms of being may not exist, to which I have no approach or which I have not happened to distinguish in my personal observation of the world. Logic, like language, is partly a free construction and partly a means of symbolizing and harnessing in expression the existing diversities of things. And while some languages, given a man's constitution and habits, may seem more beautiful and convenient to him than others, it is a foolish heat in a patriot to insist that only his native language is intelligible or right. No language or logic is right in the sense of being identical with the facts it is used to express, but each may be right by being faithful to these facts, as a translation may be faithful. My endeavor is to think straight in such terms as are offered to me, to clear my mind of cant and free it from the cramp of artificial traditions. But I do not ask anyone to think in my terms if he prefers others. Let him clean better, if he can, the windows of his soul, that the variety and beauty of the prospect may spread more brightly before him. Moreover, my system, save in the mocking literary sense of the word, is not metaphysical. It contains much criticism of metaphysics, and some refinements and speculation, like the doctrine of essence, which are not familiar to the public. And I do not disclaim being metaphysical because I at all dislike dialectic or disdain immaterial things. Indeed, it is of immaterial things, essence, truth, and spirit that I speak chiefly. But logic and mathematics and literary psychology, when frankly literary, are not metaphysical, although their subject matter is immaterial, and their application to existing things is often questionable. Metaphysics, in the proper sense of the word, is dialectical physics, or an attempt to determine matters of fact by means of logical or moral or rhetorical constructions. It arises by a confusion of those realms of being which it is my special care to distinguish. It is neither physical speculation nor pure logic nor honest literature, but as in the treatise of Aristotle first called by that name, a hybrid of the three, materializing ideal entities, turning harmonies into forces, and dissolving natural things into terms of discourse. Speculations about the natural world, such as those of the Ionian philosophers, are not metaphysics, but simply cosmology or natural philosophy. Now, in natural philosophy, I am a decided materialist, apparently the only one living, and I am well aware that idealists are fond of calling materialism to metaphysics, in rather an angry tone, so as to cast discredit upon it by assimilating it to their own systems. But my materialism, for all that, is not metaphysical. I do not profess to know what matter is in itself, and feel no confidence in the divination of those spirit forts who, leading a life of vice, thought the universe must be composed of nothing but dice and billiard balls. I wait for the men of science to tell me what matter is, insofar as they can discover it, and am not at all surprised or troubled at the abstractness and vagueness of their ultimate conceptions. How should our notions of things so remote from the scale and scope of our senses be anything but schematic? But whatever matter may be, I call it matter boldly, as I call my acquaintances Smith and Jones, without knowing their secrets. Whatever it may be, it must present the aspects and undergo the motions of the gross objects that fill the world. And if belief in the existence of hidden parts and movements in nature be metaphysics, then the kitchen maid is a metaphysician whenever she peels a potato. My system, finally, though, of course, formed under the fire of contemporary discussions, is no phase of any current movement. I cannot take at all seriously the present flutter of the image lovers against intelligence. I love images as much as they do, but images must be discounted in our waking life when we come to business. I also appreciate the other reforms and rebellions that have made up the history of philosophy. I prize their sharp criticism of one another and their several discoveries. The trouble is that each in turn has denied or forgotten a much more important truth than it has asserted. The first philosophers, the original observers of life and nature, were the best, and I think only the Indians and the Greek naturalists, together with Spinoza, have been right on the chief issue, the relation of man and of his spirit to the universe. It is not unwillingness to be a disciple that prompts me to look beyond the modern scramble of philosophies. I should gladly learn of them all, if they had learned more of one another. Even as it is, I endeavor to retain the positive insight of each, reducing it to the scale of nature and keeping it in its place. Thus I am a Platonist in logic and morals, and a transcendentalist in romantic soliloquy when I choose to indulge in it. Nor is it necessary, in being teachable by any master, to become eclectic. All these vistas give glimpses of the same wood, and a fair and true map of it must be drawn to a single scale by one method of projection and in one style of calligraphy. All known truth can be rendered in any language, although the accent and poetry of each may be incommunicable. And as I am content to write in English, although it was not my mother tongue, and although in speculative matters I have not much sympathy with the English mind, so I am content to follow the European tradition in philosophy, little as I respect its rhetorical metaphysics. its humanism, and its worldliness. There is one point, indeed, in which I am truly sorry not to be able to profit by the guidance of my contemporaries. There is now a great ferment in natural and mathematical philosophy, and the time seems ripe for a new system of nature, at once ingenious and comprehensive, such as has not appeared since the earlier days of Greece. We may soon be all believing in an honest cosmology, comparable with that of Heraclitus, Pythagoras, or Democritus. I wish such scientific systems joy, and if I were competent to follow or to forecast their procedure, I should gladly avail myself of their results, which are bound to be no less picturesque than instructive. But what exists today is so tentative, obscure, and confused by bad philosophy, that there is no knowing what parts may be sound and what parts merely personal and scatterbrained. If I were a mathematician, I should no doubt regale myself, if not the reader, with an electric or logistic system of the universe expressed in algebraic symbols. For good or ill, I am an ignorant man, almost a poet, and I can only spread a feast of what everybody knows. Fortunately, exact science and the books of the learned are not necessary to establish my essential doctrine, nor can any of them claim a higher warrant than it has in itself, for it rests on public experience. It needs, to prove it, only the stars, the seasons, the swarm of animals, the spectacle of birth and death, of cities and wars. My philosophy is justified, and has been justified in all ages and countries, by the facts before every man's eyes, and no great wit is requisite to discover it, only what is rarer than wit, candor and courage. Learning does not liberate men from superstition when their souls are cowed or perplexed, and, without learning, clear eyes and honest reflection can discern the hang of the world, and distinguish the edge of truth from the might of imagination. In the past or in the future, my language and my borrowed knowledge would have been different, but under whatever sky I have been born, since it is the same sky, I should have had the same philosophy.